got this, these deadlines, these due dates, everything coming up, and then you get to your dissertation, you're on your own, and then bam, it's done. And there's no more adrenaline, so to say, and it's tough. But I take a lot of pride in tech, and that's why I want to make sure that I do this, because I have talked with Dr. Smit about making sure that this summer I continue to give back. And I want to be very forthright in saying that I'm not special. I just feel as though I want to do it because I was treated well throughout this program. I had my highs and lows just like everyone else does. And most importantly, there are things that I learned on the way out the door and that I've still learned and I'm applying now that not everyone got or is getting. And so I think it's really important that we as graduate students, you know, pay it forward, pay it backwards, however you want to frame it, to make sure that we continue to be involved, because a lot of people take their PhD programs very seriously. When you go to national conferences, when you go to research conferences, people wear their university with a badge of pride, sometimes arrogance, and I don't feel that at Tech. I feel as though there's a very, very good core group of people, whether it's an LDLS or CST or what, any other program or ESL, but I think that we have an opportunity here to really build and really grow, and I want to make sure that everyone that came after me is better than what I was, because I was not, like I said, I was not special, but I want everyone to know that not only can you do it, but when you get through it, you kind of have an obligation to come back and help as well. And that's where I wanted to start with my presentation, and it's titled What I Wish I'd Known Before Writing a Dissertation. And I'll be very honest, you're most likely not going to like a lot of what's going to be said. And that's not meant to be mean. It's just that there's a lot there that's coming that you may not be prepared for. And this is no offense to anyone in the program, but I was not trained on how to write a dissertation throughout my classes. I was taught methods, I was taught theory, I was taught how to do literature reviews, I was taught how to take everything in the present moment, like chapter by chapter. But I had to learn a lot of how to write on my own. And I had Dr. Zimmerman who mentored me, and ultimately I was wrong, consistently wrong, more than I was ever right, even towards the end. And so as you build this, you understand, like, there are people in the race and they're trying to get towards the end and they're rushing, and I was a little bit like that, and you can kind of see my timestamp there. You know, I was admitted in the fall of 2014. Started classes in 2015, and then you can get about halfway down there and you can see dissertation trashed in 2018 in August. Now, it wasn't completely trashed, but a majority of it was. And that's because what I was doing was too far outside of the scope of education. It was a little bit too much into economics. You know, you're in a curriculum and instruction program. For me, I was in language, diversity, and literature. You have to make sure that what you're doing and what you're trying to apply throughout the course of the program can be directly advised on by those who are advising you. Because while you may be the mini master of your domain, if no one can validate or authenticate what you're saying and what you're doing, it doesn't matter. You know, and I don't say this to be mean, and someone else had said this before, so I'm only repeating what was told to me. You know, you're in a PhD program. You're not. If you are in an educational doctorate program within here, I don't know that there's one available, but there's a lot of differences there with educational doctorates. You know, a lot of them will start you from the very beginning. I think an old professor of mine called them dead degrees, because you would go into them and they would sit there and then they would just basically help you write your dissertation and just be paper pushers. They would hand you your data. They would tell you what you would align to theoretically. They would tell you your methods. They just pushed you through the program and got it done and out the door, and thanks for coming. And I think those kind of programs, and there may be PhD programs like that exist as well, but I think those are individuals who, in those instances, care about getting doctor in front of their name. You know, and again, I was told from the onset, you know, this is not Phoenix University. You're at a top tier university. You're at a very high level for research, and it's important to maintain that. And in education, as you can see, the website, the link down below, you know, it could take someone up to 13 years. You know, the average is about 8 because people are full-time teachers. So we can see we have Heather who's here, who's full-time teaching, literally got out of class. I mean, you can't prepare for a lot of things. And then if you're a full-time teacher and you need something like an IRB, or you need to be able to collect data in a different school or something from your own, you may have to take a sabbatical or half year, full year sabbatical, take time off. It's not cheap. It costs money to do this. So there's a lot of things there that are not necessarily factored in that once you get towards the end can extend your life within the actual doctoral program. I stole this from Dr. Madison, and I wanted to say this before I went into it. She said that you need to have low, medium, and high cognitive task commitments, okay? Low tasks are ones that you can listen to music and watch television. Spelling, formatting, labeling tables, stuff like that. Low cognitive. Medium tasks are where you're going to start to get a little bit thicker. It's going to be sentence structure. I'll be quoting Dr. Zimmerman a lot in here because I've stolen a lot of his lines because they're very good. Paragraph, chapter sculpting, and then seeing and understanding the forest through the trees. Like, you've got all this immense amount of data and all this immense amount of research and all these ideas that are coming, and you kind of got to get through. You have to be able to navigate, and then that gets you into the potentially like 4 to 6 hour high level tasks where you're doing deep analysis, deep theoretical and methodological design and framing, and transforming your results into coherent findings. And the best way that I can describe this is basically through Rick and Morty, as you can see. You know, the qualifying exams, like, you're still excited, you're right there at the end of your coursework, you're really pumped and you're really brought in, and you're about to go on this adventure. And then you go into the dissertation proposal defense, and it's a total eye-opener. It's like, wow, what I thought was research is not really research, or, oh no, they give the old, yeah, this looks good, but, and then you have this gigantic amount of notes that you have to sift through and prepare. And then the writing of the dissertation, sometimes you need to be in a bubble because you are gonna, you know, like, I hit my countertop many times mad. Like, I slam my fist down on it, just so mad at what I was doing or feedback that I received, or, you know, it's one of those, you think something's good and then it's not. And then you turn something in and you're like, oh God, that was horrible. And then, oh, I really like that. Like, you start questioning yourself and you start wondering, you know, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? How am I supposed to really be doing this? And then I joke, like, the double middle finger on the way out the door. It's like exactly what I had said. Like, I'm just like, you get done, and I have not read my dissertation since I defended it. I tried one time to read it, and I was like, I can't do this. I have to try something new, because now I'm so trained that I like look at stuff and I'm like, you know, you can't do that. That's not right. This isn't working. And so how do you get there? And how do we get to this point? So end of your coursework, you have your qualifying exam. Take 3 credits, and it's going to be at an 8,000 level. Your dissertation committee that you built, you'll have 2 weeks to complete the exam. You're not going to get stuff that doesn't pertain to what you're interested in. Like, if for me, I was interested in financial risk, and at the time I was interested in quantitative methods, and I was looking at like pragmatism or different forms of critical literacy at that time. They didn't turn to me with like Russian literature and qualitative studies and all this. Like, they're not going to throw you a curveball at this point. That's not what is going to happen. You're going to show that you have an understanding of content area knowledge of, and when I wrote this, it was language and literacy, for that was LDLS, but if you're in CSTE, it'll be something different. Your theory and your methods. And when you write your actual qualifying exam out, most likely, and if Dr. Smit or Dr. Zimmerman would like to interject at this point, I would like to let them come in. Usually it's like one person on the committee writes each question. Like, there's someone that will say, I'll take care of this or I'll take care of that. Dr. Smit or Dr. Zimmerman, would you like to interject there to put your perspective on that?
It depends on the committee. Sometimes what I do is I have a conversation with the committee members, and we brainstorm together, and then it's kind of my responsibility to take what was brainstormed create, a version of the questions and then send them back to see if this is what everybody agrees on.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's usually what happens, is that the committee meets together and talks about the types of questions that will be covered. And again, I think, Michael, you've done a good job of summarizing the types of things that are covered, more or less. Kind of, there's a methodology type question, there's a question about the content that you're covering. And so to get to the level of understanding of what those questions should be, it's going to involve conversations with the committee amongst itself, conversations with the candidate and the members of the committee to craft those questions. So usually it's a joint effort. If there are situations where you really are bringing in a member on the committee because they have a very specialized expertise that other people on the committee don't have, that would probably be a situation where that one committee member says, okay, I'll write the question about, financial literacy or economics or whatever it might be, if that expertise is very specialized compared to the knowledge that the other committee members have.
And I think it is a good point right now. Now, let's just say, all right, so you get done with your qualifying examination, okay? I can't make this clear enough to you. You are only to go to your dissertation chair. Do not seek advice without the permission of your chair. They are the most important person to you. That is out of respect for them, and that is also out of respect for the other committee members, because you have to understand you're going to have differing opinions about how, when it's constructed, when it is constructed, how it is to be done. You do not want that. When Dr. Zimmerman said to me, Michael, this is good, but we need more, and I said, well, I remember doing this with Dr. Smit. Can I please contact her? Yes, you can. I would recommend that you contact her, and then you can come back to me and we'll discuss. And I talked to Dr. Smit, and she makes fun of me. I talked to her on my honeymoon, and because that's how far deep I was into it. But that was with the permission from the top down. And I can't overemphasize that enough. I emailed Dr. Zimmerman. I have the log every 2 weeks for 14 months. Whether or not he wanted to, the fact is that it happened because that was the kind of pace that we set. But that was due in part to his commitment to me and my commitment to him. So if you have that with someone, you need to start doing that now in your career as a doctoral student. If someone's not emailing you back, if someone's not responding to phone calls or getting a hold of you or kind of putting you off to the side or not giving you good feedback in classes, I highly recommend you sift through that from the very beginning, because that person is your direct key to the end of this escape room that you're in. Okay, because without that kind of support and feedback and insights, you could be roasted real fast. And that can come during the actual dissertation proposal. The defense and the design is what you're doing. This is where you're proving what you're doing is actual research. This is the process. This is where most likely you'll get your first 3 chapters on the books. And it'll constitute somewhat of like introduction, theory/literature review, and your methods. I have, 2 quotes in there that I'd like to put. You can't be in your dissertation proposal defense and run with the, well, I think I'd like to, or I don't know, I think I can is not going to cut it. It has to be, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I believe in. This is what the research says. This is what the methods are that align to this. And if you don't, and you go in there, you can run into a buzzsaw. To quote, again, Dr. Zimmerman, you're not going to Jedi mind trick the committee or have them believe that they don't have the reality stone to be like, and here's your problem. And then you're stuck. Then you're in a whole new world of hurt. And you will get dragged through the mud. This is these people's livelihoods. This is their jobs. This is what they do. You're not going to get over on them. You're not going to just get this to get through it. If you say, well, I want to have this done by 2022, well, if it ain't done till 2024, I got news for you. It's not done till 2024. You can't put a timeline on this. You have to work, and it has to be done well and right. I know people that got in the program before me that still have not defended their dissertation proposal. I know people that have gotten in before me that still have not gone back and had to rewrite their dissertation defense proposal to do this and rewrite their actual document, or their theory changes, or their method changes, or their IRB ran out, or their IRB wasn't valid anymore because they got a new demographic of students and they had to go back in. You're adding time to this. You have to really take these kind of things into consideration. As I put in there, you have to be prepared to say goodbye to past interests and ideas. I love John Dewey. I love Jane Addams. I thought they were great. I thought pragmatism and critical pragmatism were phenomenal ideas. They're gone. They were nowhere to be found in my dissertation. And that was hard for me because I was so tied into it, and I took classes on it, and I read, and I've got so many books, and it's like, you know what, Michael? This just doesn't fit here. It doesn't align with your methods. You can't do this with what you're doing. And you got to swallow it, and you got to eat it, and you got to take it in stride, and you say, okay. And then when you defend that proposal, when you actually get in there, you're going to give the actual committee 2 weeks to read your proposal, and then you'll do what we're doing here if you're not down on campus, Skype or Zoom in. And then, you're not going to get your IRB beforehand because they have to approve it. And then they're going to give you feedback. Most likely, your chair is going to let the other two filter their thoughts in because they've been working with you, or should have been working with you, throughout the entire time. And then once they approve the proposal, then you could start doing your data collection. And know this, because it happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to many others, this is not set in stone. This is not your final. As the research evolves, you may find something and go, oh my God, this is not what we thought. And that's why you have a good working relationship with your chair, who can sit there and say, okay, we're within the scope. We weren't down the path that we thought we were going down, but let's take a little turn here. You need to go back and get more research on this and get more documents and get more supporting evidence. And we need to adjust your literature and so on and so forth. And that's okay. That's allowed. That's supposed to happen. You don't want your research to be bland. You want it to evolve. This might be, in the 16 slides, this might be the most important slide I think that I have to offer you. If you look at the note, you can see there's that giant ring in the center, okay? And then there's all these attaching ideas that go out. And they all, the first ring all relates to its individual part that stretches out. But once again, to quote Dr. Zimmerman, you start to go too far down the node, and what do you see? None of those chain links are interlocked anymore. So while they may relate to the large concept that you have, if they all do not relate together, if they all do not connect, you are going to have holes in your paper that will become canyons, that will become points of emphasis made by someone potentially on your committee that is going to squash your dissertation. And it's gone, okay? You can't have that. If you look, you have to have your center goal piece that you've got, like what's your central theme and idea that you're going to run with. And then it all has to link together, and it's all going to come home so that when you finally get back to that final link that links to your initial, you can say, here's my recommendations. Here's what I think should happen. Here's what I think future research should take a look at. That's the important part of this whole process. Everything has to flow. If you do it too much in parts, you're going to come together, and at some point you're going to sit there and go, uh-oh, this doesn't connect. And that will become a gigantic problem. I just talked to my one buddy, who I won't say their name. I was reading their paper, and I said, and this was said to me multiple times, I have no idea what you're doing. What? I have no idea what you're doing. This makes no sense. What are you writing? Well, this and this and this. And it's like, you can't write like you talk. You can't write like in idioms, right? It's got to be research. It's got to be clear for the reader. You're the master of your domain. So when you're writing your paper, you have to act as though the reader has zero understanding of what you're talking about. Even though you're talking with your chair and you guys are batting ideas back and forth and you guys are kind of on the same page or are on the same page, you have to write as though no one knows what you're talking about, so that when it goes to the final product and it gets handed to the committee, they can sit there and go, we understand. That is critical. And that comes down to this, methods. I say it's the methods of mayhem, okay? You have to write for the reader. You handhold them the whole way through the process. You have to act as though they legitimately don't know what you're talking about. Because you know what? There's a very good chance that they don't. Dr. Zimmerman had a very good understanding of financial literacy education, teacher education, what we're supposed to look for, curriculum and standards. But when it came down to neoclassicism, he was a little light. We had to make a change. We had to go over to financial risk. We had to look into lenses of risk management insurance. And even through that, I had to write so that he could understand as he was learning the whole way. And he was taking the time to make sure that what I was saying was competent, was valid, was reliable, and going through the process that we got to the point when I started writing my codes, when I started actually coding my data and putting it through, he looked at it and said, this is good. And then I took it to Dr. Smit. And Dr. Smit sat down and said, you need to make changes to X, Y, and Z within your analysis. And there's no point in me going into what they are within the analysis because you may not be using it. But the 3 points of emphasis that she gave me helped me so that when I was coding, when I was writing my stuff out, I took it back to Dr. Zimmerman. And in your methods, it's a script. It's what you did. It's your methods. Don't conflate your methods, your results, and your discussion. You're going to confuse the reader. Let them know what you did. The method should be, in my opinion, the biggest part of your dissertation. That's the meat of it. That proves that you are an independent researcher. That proves that you're not hiding anything. That proves that you know what you did, how you did it, why you did it, when you did it. Someone should be able to take your document and hand it to someone who has never done it before and follow your methods and then be able to determine their own results. And if you want to, you could say, well, that's when you do second rounds of coding and stuff like that, to say that, you know, you have a blind code or whatever so that someone else can do it and it produces similar results. If you're scatterbrained or you're the only one that knows how to do what you're doing, I've got news for you. That's not going to cut it. Once again, you're not special. There are people out there that have written great books on methods and how to do them step by step and lay them out. And you can tweak them. You could say adapted from, you know, Sue 2012 or whatever are the ones that I used. But the fact is that your methods are the key to your success, in my opinion. And I saw you shake your head a couple times, Dr. Zimmerman. Would you like to come in and agree in part or in full about what I said about the methods?
No, that just must have been my shaking my head must have just been a reflex, because I agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. To be rigorous in the methods. One thing I did want to share, since you did pass me the baton. Michael, if you could stop sharing your screen for a second.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. Go ahead.
Thank you. Not to hijack the presentation here.
Please do.
I wanted to, give me a second here. Yes, so what Michael said about the links in the chain, that's a nice way to think about it, and I'm glad he made that point. I hadn't thought about it before in terms of like there's the center and the chains going out versus it all being connected, but that's a nice way to think about it. So when he said that, I was thinking about this diagram, which I use in my orientation to scholarship course, which is this idea of the alignment between the different pieces of the manuscript. And this is just the first three. So this would be like the proposal. And then if you were to have, if you were to have the full paper, you'd have basically 2 more boxes. You'd have the results and then the conclusions, and then all of it would connect that way in a nice way. But here, if you just have the first 3, you still have this alignment between what's the problem, what am I trying to do, what is the theoretical framework, or how am I framing this, how am I approaching this study, what assumptions am I making, how does that align with what I'm trying to do, and then the methodology is what I'm doing aligned with all those other choices that I've made. Is it aligned with a theoretical framework? Does the methodology actually answer the research questions? If it's all a big hodgepodge, then there's no alignment. So just to have one link in the chain follow from the other, as Michael was saying, that's really the key. So I'll leave it at that. Let me, sorry. How do I, oh, there we go, sorry.
And, you know, before I'll pull my screen back up. You know, we have a lot of people in here who are, we have a lot of people in here that are teachers, okay? High school, middle school, whatever, one choose specialists, the whole 9 yards. You know, we adapt on the fly. I do it all the time, okay? That's just who I am. That's what I am. I'm a teacher, okay? And you know, like as Heather had said, I teach in a juvenile detention center. You know, I get told some really wildly inappropriate things on a consistently regular basis. I have to adapt on the fly, and it works for me in my classroom because, to be quite frank, I can just BS my way around things as they collapse. But you can't do that here. You have to be concise. You have to be clear in what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. Or again, as I've said multiple times, you're going to get ate up. And if you don't know that now, you'll find out soon enough, because there are people, and I'll say this point as well, and Dr. Smit or Dr. Zimmerman, if you would like to interject at this point before I get, because I'm almost done, you know, if you get over on them at the end, good and shame for you. Because what have you done with your degree? What have you done with your time? What have you done for the university? Again, if you only care about yourself so you could be called Dr. So-and-so, so that you could put it on a business card, live that life and knock yourself out. That is pointless and worthless in my opinion. It doesn't matter. What matters is the work that you do. And I said at the beginning, that's why I'm struggling now, because I can't find a point to the work that I'm doing. And I'm not going to put my name on a piece of crap. I'm not going to do that. I've come this far. Why would I show that I can do what I do and do what I do well and then try to submit something that's going to just get slaughtered? Like, I won't do it. I'm taking the time to learn at this end of the game. But I didn't have the foresight to do that because I didn't want to go for a college job. I didn't want to change my position. I wanted to teach. I wanted to be a better teacher. Dr. Leslie told me that. You can be whatever you want. You can work in curriculum. You can work in policy. You can work in research. You can work for a university. You can go to a community college. You can do what you want. What do you want to do, Michael? I want to teach. Good. We need PhDs in the classroom. Kids don't come across from them. They get the 5-year administrator. The people who come in, they get the degree, they teach for 5 years, and they're shipped and they're gone, and they're just trying to work their way up the ladder. And if that was someone here, I apologize. And I'm not saying it to be offensive. As someone who's had 7 principals in 13 years, you can kind of take things a little personal sometimes because you care about what you do and you care about doing it well. And so I think that needs to apply whenever you're doing your research, because if you want to be a better teacher, that's fine. But know that while you're doing that process, you really have to separate and say, I'm a graduate student, and this is what's expected of me. And for this to potentially get published or to get to a presentation circuit or to go to a proposal for something larger like AERA or SERA or whatever it is, it had better have some merit and validity to it, or no one's going to put their name on it at the end. If you look at the back end of what I just said from the big part of the methods, Your data collection shouldn't be longer than a semester. You can start writing your results, but again, do not conflate results with methods. Use tables and diagrams. Don't make them page after page after page. Use tables and diagrams to your advantage. Don't use them as fillers. Use them when necessary to show people what your thought processes are, or what processes are as far as like steps to things. Like I showed, like for risk management insurance, a process. It was easier to show the process than it was to write about it, because it was easy to get lost in what was being written if you were not a specialist in it. So the diagram that I had was very easy for anyone to see and to understand. And again, the point is not to change the world. If you do, God bless you. But if you want to show something in your dissertation, show that you know how to be an independent researcher. Show that you have a strong understanding of theory and methods. That is what I believe and what I've been trained to do as far as writing the dissertation. And then here's a very important note, and I think a lot of you will understand this at this current point in time. If your dissertation chair should leave the university, which they have every right to if they choose to, you may have a problem on your hand. This is why you need to build relationships with professors and make sure that they're transparent with you. Because if their goals and objectives are something different, and then they try to rush the process, and then it puts strain and stress on the rest of the dissertation committee, and now you have conflicting committee members, and the dissertation chair is the final say, you got a world of hurt. You have a world of hurt. So you had better make sure that you don't burn bridges along the way, or that you don't say something that gets around and start doing chatter, because it's going to come back. I think my father always said, what goes around comes around. So you need to be very, very cautious as you progress throughout the discussion boards, as you progress. If any of you are on that Facebook page or on the Twitter handle or whatever have you, you had better know who you're talking about and when you're talking about them, because if it gets around, I'm telling you, you're going to have a little bit of trouble on your hands. And here's the big one. As you can see, the overarching theme, it's a lot of you. You got to work with your chair the entire time. Never go to another committee member. Those points have been made. You have to defend your dissertation, not your chair. You're the one that steps in there. You're on an island, okay? You have to be prepared to step in and do this and know it inside and out and be concise. You submit your revision. So let's go to the day of the actual defense. You go in, you do the defense. Someone on the committee says, I think we should put this in there. Someone on the committee says, I don't necessarily agree. I think that should be for future research. Your dissertation chair doesn't say anything and lets them battle it out. Or your dissertation chair comes in and says, I think this is actually pertinent to the dissertation right now, but you can see why we didn't actually do it because there's this, this, and this that was more important and more relevant, so maybe this could go here later, or maybe we can write this in. You're going to have a giant discussion in there, and you need to weather that storm, and you need to hold your ground, and you don't take it personal. You don't take offense to it. It's just research. It's just business. And then you sit there and you reflect. Do not take it personal, because if you go on a national stage, the same thing's going to happen to you. People are going to do that as well. I've done it myself. I've went to research conferences and questioned people, why did you do this? You don't take it offensive. You just have to gather, take good notes. Make sure if you want to, I know Dr. Zimmerman took very good notes for me. He was like the person in the court who transcribes. I mean, he had everything written down for me so that we could go over it. But you go back with your chair and you talk about the revisions. And you may have to go back and may have to make major changes. You may not. Your chair may say, I think we can make this, this, and this, or we can do this, this, and this, and that will accommodate what they were saying. And then, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here, but the ETD, the electronic thesis and dissertation people, man, if it's the end of the semester, good luck getting a hold of them. They literally do not pick up their phones or respond to emails because they are so swamped. And here comes to another time thing that you need to understand. And this may be just as important as the ring diagram. I submitted my final dissertation to Dr. Zimmerman 3 days after Christmas. We reviewed it and edited it for almost 2 months throughout the month of February. Somewhere in the middle of February, he decided and gave me the thumbs up to say, this is ready to go. We'll continue to work on this up to the 2-week deadline, but let's set a date. We set a date for March 18th. We got that dissertation in like the last week of February. Your committee has 3 weeks to review it, and then you will go in and defend it. But here's the catch. If you defend your dissertation, there's a deadline in each semester to actually submit it, like defend it and submit it to the ETD office so that they can hold on to it and then finalize it for you. And I'm not like reviews. I'm talking about like you actually submit it because it's actually copyright, like Texas Tech University. If you can't do your revisions by the deadline, you can add another 3 credits to your next semester. You're not going to get over on them. I've heard, and Dr. Leslie had said, there are select cases where that happens, but I would not bet on it. And you have to take 3 credits in your final semester. You can take 1 credit, as many semesters as you want, but when you want to defend your dissertation, you have to take a minimum of 3. So if you take your 3 and that gives you your 12 credits, and then all of a sudden someone says, well, we need to take a serious look at this. We are going to need to, we're going to need to make some serious revisions here. You don't have to go back in and redefend your dissertation. You may. I could be wrong in that. I don't necessarily believe that they would do that to you, but you will have to submit your revisions that will have to be approved by your dissertation chair. And if they don't give you the thumbs up, you're out of luck. You're going to have to take another semester to get this done, and then you'll have to submit those credits in again, and then you'll be able to turn it into the ETD office. And then they're going to send it back. And just as an FYI, the format that you've used your entire coursework career, well, before it wasn't like this. Now you can go online and you can actually pull up the dissertation outline that you can use. It's a format, like the margins are different, the way that they put things and the way they want their tables are a specific way. So I would recommend doing that as you're writing before you actually submit your dissertation. Like, don't get there and then have to copy and paste the whole thing over, and then the margins are all defunct and the whole 9 yards. I would recommend you starting from the beginning, their formatting, and talking to your advisor about that. The one thing that I put here is again, Drunk Rick's point from the very beginning is that none of you are very special or different. That's always his point. And he was referring to the Vindicators. For any of you who actually watch Rick and Morty, it's about superheroes coming together. And I believe that. I believe that. The work that you're doing is special to you, and it's different than most likely what anyone else has done. That's why you're doing it. But you're not the only one that's been through this process. You have 3 people sitting in this meeting right now that's been through it. So you can't be like, oh, woe is me. Oh, they're being too hard on me. I know people that have cried. I know people that have been talked to in meetings where they were told, you're just better than this. What do you? I know that it happens, because you have to understand. And as much as I've been for them and against them at the same time, I have to say, your committee has a life too. And you can't expect them to do things on short notice. You have to respect the process that's there and respect their input and trust that everything that you're doing is where it's supposed to go in the long term, so that at the end of the day, the work that you're putting there was yours. You could take a lot of credit for it, you can own it, and you can make it better and hopefully make it a part of your life's work. And this was what I said to my father before I walked in the day before. I said, I'm not walking into that room unless I know I'm up 1-0. And I knew personally that Dr. Zimmerman had my back. I knew that he said, let's listen to feedback, let's look and see what they have. But I knew that man had my back, and I'm forever grateful for it. But if you don't have that, walking in there, don't step in those doors. Take a step back and get it better. Do not defy or go against the people who you asked, mind you, and get no additional money for being on your committee. Some of these professors have 6, 7, 8 people that they're advising. As I had said in the previous slide, you're not the only one. There are other people that are needed at that time. There are other people in need at that time. So please understand, respect, and appreciate that, as well as I can say that for the professors, because it's very important to know that. I'm right on time. I can't believe it. I'm never on time. I'm right within my time frame. I want to open up the floor to questions if anyone has any questions. Not all
Well,
at the same time because it jumbles.
Yeah. Yes. If I may, I'm going to interject and quickly just share one more thing. And then actually I have a question for Michael. The first thing I wanted to share, and again, I won't go through this right now, but I just wanted to alert it to everybody's attention that it exists, which is if you type in, Texas Tech University Graduate School guidelines for the oral doctoral defense, you will get to this document, and it's a PDF document, and it's just one page, but I would encourage your advisors and your committee, and most relevant to this conversation, you to be familiar with this. So this can give you a sense of know how it's going to go, know what the schedule, what the procedure is, what the format is, and know what the options are in terms of committee approval and all of those types of things. So nobody, not the committee and not you, should go in there surprised about or uncertain about how things are going to unfold. It's like, so what happens now? What the rules and the procedures are. Because these rules and procedures are in place to prevent exactly against that type of situation where people are saying, but you told me I would pass, or whatever. So, so just make sure that you are familiar with these guidelines and that your, committee is familiar with it as well. Because again, it's tucked in there in the graduate school website. But over the course of my years here at Texas Tech, I've now made it my commitment that I'm going to frame this on my wall.
Dr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Right there, right in the center. Graduate Dean's representative. Let me touch on this point right here. This is why it is important, in my opinion, again, which all of them are my opinions, but this is important to go outside the specific C&I college ed, whether you're in like EDLL or CSTE. I had Dr. Lee Doomer, who was Ed Sci. I took a case study course with him. It helped my quantitative methods requirements. He was my graduate dean's representative. You have to have someone from outside that graduate school in there, and they're the protocol referee. They get your dissertation, the final product, they can read it, and then if the committee says, did you take a look at it, what do you think? They don't have a vote, but they can interject to say, well, I saw what you're saying, or they just want a different opinion because, people talk. So it is important to branch out into different parts of the program because you can have two people. Dr. Smit, correct me if I'm wrong as well. Dr. Zimmerman, is it said there two people from within your college, and then you can have one from outside your specific college? Is that correct?
You mean on the committee? On
the committee.
Dr. Smit, correct me if I'm wrong. I think they can all be.
They can all be in C&I.
They can all be in C&I. I think they could all be in the program too. I think the issue is that the chair has to be within the department.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Zimmerman. Go ahead.
No, that was it.
You said you had a question, though.
Oh, the question, yes. So the question is, early in your presentation, Michael, you said, I was never taught how to write a dissertation. Then you said, well, I did learn how to write a literature review, I learned about theories, I learned methodology, but I didn't learn how to write a dissertation. Could you say more about how you think, what it means to learn to write a dissertation and how that's different from learning these different components in courses like the methods, the theories, the content, things like that.
Right. I think again, it goes to sculpting. So what we had said, when you learn how to use all these toolkits, these tools in your toolkit that you have, when you finally get to the point when you're actually writing your dissertation, you have to understand that there's a writing process and then there's an editing process. And the editing process is the sculpting. You're throwing clay against the wall the entire time, and then you kind of chunk it all together, and then you kind of have to make this masterpiece. And so you can have strong parts of like, boy, I really understand this methodology. I really understand this theory. But you have to write it such that others can interpret it and others can understand it along with you. So that as you progress through the intro into it, it all ties together. Like you can't throw these insane like stories and analogies and things out there. Like it's got to be really, really concise, and then you can expand it out. Like there's no limit to your dissertation. I think mine was like 100 pages, and 40 of it was methods. So, you know, you can have a 400-page dissertation and it cannot say anything. And I'm sure that's happened. So it's not about length, it's about content and what you're writing. And then we'll get to a certain point where you're like, I don't have to write about these methods anymore. Or I only needed one additional paragraph here. I didn't have to go this far in. And what you'll find is that sometimes you'll say the same thing twice, just in a different way. And you have to catch yourself to say, where's the real meat of what I'm talking about here? Okay, let me pull this up. Let me put this paragraph here. Let me expound upon this down here. Okay, that's it. Like that's all you needed. You don't have to hammer them with it. It's almost better to say, can you expand on this a little bit? Then I don't know what you're talking about. Or you have too much and I can't decipher. You're talking about too many different points. Or you're talking about one concept, but you have 2 points coming out of it, and none of them actually traject down to where you're going. Why are you doing this? Like you can't have that many gaps in those links. I think it's important to really pace yourself in that. Is that good enough, Dr. Zimmerman?
So it sounds like you're saying the challenge of putting it all together and working with one large manuscript over a long period of time.
Right.
And crafting that is not necessarily something that people do in their coursework semester to semester.
No. I mean, you're looking at maximum 25 pages, and you have a time frame. Like when you have a time frame and someone's giving you feedback on Blackboard or whatever, you're limited. You're limited at best. You know what I mean? And then you're on your own, and now you have to write, and you are your own worst enemy at that point. So you have to determine when is enough and enough. And I'll say this much too on that I can say that you helped with. I would send these documents frequently. You know what I mean? Because you don't want it to be a month or 2 months and your chair has not read your paper. And now they're like, whoa, what's this? Like you have big problems then. Again, you have more wrong than you have right. So does anyone have any thoughts, or just in general, or feeling, I mean, while we're here, I mean, I don't want to hold anyone up and hijack the meeting, but does anyone have any thoughts or anything, or any additional comments or questions?
I would just like to say one thing. I wouldn't call it a wrong versus a right. I mean, it's never wrong per se. It's not like you're a dope or something like that, but we all, even us more experienced researchers, go through this exact same, it's the writing process. So you start off with the first draft, and then, you know, you get feedback on it, and then you go for a second draft, and it's a never-ending draft until it finally becomes that final product. It's just more of, so for those literacy people here, you know about the writing process and how, you know, your first draft is always crap. Yeah, Lloyd's laughing at me, but yeah, then your second draft and your third draft and your fourth, it gets better and better with every revision if you take that feedback seriously. So I would say it's a wrong versus a right, but like Michael's first draft, yes, it needed work, but that's where our feedback was, and his drafts got better and better. So.
And you're much nicer than I am. You know what I mean? And for any of you who watch Project Runway, I'm like Tim Gunn. You know what I mean? I'm just the mentor along the way. That's what I always say. And I'm allowed to be critical of myself, and I want to be, and I felt as though it was much, but it was very good to have support systems there to say, whoa, you're being too hard on yourself. Like, whoa, it's not that bad. It's not that good, but it's not that bad either. Like, this thing is going to continue to progress. So.
And I think you're going to notice when you look back on your dissertation a year or two, you're going to have two thoughts. You're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I had all of this. And then you're going to be like, but now I'm moving in this different direction and I can't believe I wrote this.
Well, and I'll say this, and then I promise I'm done, Heather and Richard. And I want to say thank you again for letting me come. I will be down for the summer intensive again this summer. I feel as though it is important to get feedback from individuals who are not, as I say, on the books from Texas Tech. Because I can look at you and go, what the bleep and the bleep and the bleep is this? You know what I mean? And I will not do that here, but I will do that at Jason's Deli, or I will do that at Chimmy's across the street and look at you and say, you can't do this. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I feel an obligation, and I will send this out and I will talk to Dr. Smit, and you have my word on this, that if there are people in the dissertation, whether it's the defense or the proposal process, or even if you're getting ready for your qualifying examination, if you want to send me documents, if you want to send me stuff to read, I will not write for you. But if you are in the dissertation, like, so you've passed your qualifying examination and now you're writing your dissertation proposal, I will be more than happy to read the whole thing. If you give me a month's notice, like I will send this out at the end of May, at the end of the semester, to say, I'm coming down for the intensive. If you have something and you want me to read it, if you think that, if I'm even worth that to you, that's fine. If not, I understand. But if you want me to read it, I will sit down with you face to face down at the intensive, and I will go over your writing with you. And I will go over and say, this is my opinion. This is where I think this needs work. This is where I think this is good. This is what I think they would say. I still have somewhat of a relationship with some of the professors because their methods of how they teach and how they think and how they reflect and how they give feedback are in my mind. If you have someone brand new, I don't know how they're going to respond. And so my feedback is only so good at that point. But I think that it would be valuable, in my opinion, to give that to you so that you can have an outside voice and not be in an echo chamber with someone within your actual cohort that's sitting there going, oh, that's a great idea. I don't see what they're seeing. I'm going to go, no, I see what the problem is. Like, if you show me the email of them saying this is what needs to be fixed, I'll be more than happy to sit down. And I'll do that for as many people as I can. That is my promise. I don't have to do these presentations. I want to. But if there's a better service for me to have, to sit there and help people write and to get through these processes and to get through these steps, I have to put my money where my mouth is. And so I will be down there to help anyone who needs that as best as I can. Because, again, understand, I'm most likely not going to understand what you're talking about, which is why I'll need some time to do so, to read, reflect, give you feedback, and help you if you want it. And I will put that email out there. Dr. Smit, also, just to reiterate, because I have talked to you about that before, but I wanted to reiterate that to you again.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to soon have conversations about dates and stuff like that. So we'll let you know.
Thank you.
I don't know if the graduate students saw that Dr. Smit and company were featured in the College of Education newsletter saying what a success the summer intensive was. And there were some quotes from Dr. Smit saying how wonderful it was and all of this. So yeah, it was definitely a success and definitely an exemplar in the college of how to do things to mentor and support the students.
And certainly we don't want this to be an LDLS only thing. So, maybe last year it was LDLS only, but like we definitely want to expand upon that.
How many of you are LDLS?
Here or?
Here.
In total.
One, two, okay, two, okay. And the other one, you guys are all, the other ones are CSTE, is that what you guys are? Mm-hmm. Or ESL, or what are we?
STEM.
STEM.
Okay, STEM. Oh, okay, STEM.
Yep, STEM.
Okay. Okay. Be more than happy to help if anyone wants it. If not, again.
We'll certainly talk about more ways to advertise the Lano Estacado Writers Alliance through the EGSO and make sure that everybody's aware of the dates and not just LDLS.
And I'll just tell one more story, and then we'll move on. Again, thank you so much, Michael, for taking your time and taking the time tonight and sharing your story. And, Dr. Smit and I and, any other respective advisor can say these words and would echo many of the things that you're saying. But I think that we would all agree that coming from you, somebody who's been through this from the student perspective and sitting in the chair of the person who's actually writing and then defending the dissertation, it's meaningful to hear what your experience was like and what your journey was like in terms of the timeline and the revisions and the defense and all of that. So I know that just like in the summer intensive, your peers are grateful to hear your experience. The one story I wanted to add, and this kind of dovetails to something Michael was saying before in terms of reading and giving feedback and all of that, is that point of giving and receiving and taking feedback, Dr. Smit was saying this too, is really integral to the whole process. It can either make things smooth, you're writing with the current or you're writing against the current. And the story I wanted to tell was when I was a graduate student and then I graduated, I said to my advisor, I said, I really want to thank you for supporting me all of these past 5 years. And I just want to apologize. I know I ask a lot of questions. I know I talk a lot. I know I probably drive you crazy. So, thank you for all of the time and all the feedback you gave me. And, I really appreciate it. And I apologize if at any point, I gave you a headache. And she said, no, you don't understand, Aaron. You're the best type of graduate student because you took my feedback. So, and now sitting in her chair, I understand what she was saying. If the student, regardless of who the student is, the professor is going to take the time to read the work and comment and give the feedback. And that, is regardless of who the student is and regardless of how good the first draft is, as Dr. Smit was saying, the feedback is going to be given. But then the test is whether or not the student can accept as opposed to reject, and also then integrate that feedback into their next draft. So if the student is able to take that feedback seriously, it doesn't mean to just be like, oh, okay, accept all track edits, I'm done, but you can choose to accept and reject, just like when you're submitting a manuscript. You just have to address the comments. You don't have to say, well, I changed everything just like the peer reviewers said. They said change this, so I changed it. You can say, well, I changed this, but I'm not going to change this because blank, blank, blank. So you just have to justify your choices. But you have to demonstrate that you're taking the feedback seriously. But if a student is not even reading the feedback or is making the same mistakes again and again in terms of, well, this part isn't clear, and then you see the next part and that part hasn't been expanded upon at all, then you feel like you're going in circles. These are the things that can make that process seem a lot more drawn out and protracted for both the student and the advisor than it has to be. Then it's like, okay, we're going through this again and again and again and again. I already saw this movie, but so being receptive to the feedback and integrating the feedback is a huge piece of the puzzle. That's all I wanted to say.
And little did you know, your advisor, she would have known that you were going to have a 4-hour blowout with me one night where we literally Zoomed for 4 hours. And and I'll say this because he's not a hostile person, but it was hostile. I mean, it was aggressive. Like, what are you doing, Michael? Okay, now we're going to have a discussion. And now, like he had said, you kind of have to stand your ground and say, no, I'm not doing this. That's not what I'm interested in. Okay, well then you need to tell me what you're doing and why. And it needs to be better. Can't make it any more clear than that. And I respect that. I'd rather have that. Don't dance around it. So, but I agree 100%. I will unhijack your meeting. Heather and Richard, thank you very much for having me. I hope it was beneficial. I know I'm off the wall at times, But thank you. Continue to send me those emails if you want any additional stuff, or if anyone wants to send me an email privately to ask me a question, not a problem. If not, I hope I see some of you throughout the course of the year and even in the summer at the summer intensive.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I feel a lot better going into this because I got my syllabus and everything yesterday for starting quals on Friday and going into that dissertation process. And it gave me some serious anxiety. I've been stressing out so bad. So I'm like, oh, okay. I feel so much better after listening to your talk. So it actually helped a little, release some anxiety.
That's what we're here for.
So
thank you very much. I will dip out of your meeting. Dr. Zimmerman, I will hit you up. I had a couple things that I wanted to talk to you about in preparation for the fall, and then looking into the spring semester. Okay.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I know we're probably technically we're beyond time, but I did post in the chat the mentorship survey. If you have not already taken that, if you could go ahead and do that. And I would love to hear ideas for future talks. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so we could just throw them in the chat box or whatever. Email the executive board if you want, so we can look at potential talks for the future. And the next meeting date is September 24. So that will be coming out. And I'm going to shut up and say, what ideas do we have?
And just to reiterate, I think we're going to just move on with this method by just doing Zoom instead of the Skype for Business, so we don't have to worry about reserving a room. So from now on, I'm just going to be using the Zoom link. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to upload the video that I'm recording, I don't know, maybe onto YouTube or something, so that I can send the link out to our Facebook page and also to
put it on our website.
And on the website as well.
Zoom will have a link for that.
Yes, yes.
Which will be exciting. So if somebody missed this, they can actually go back and watch. Or like me, I watched it and I still want to go back and rewatch it. There are definitely some pieces that I wasn't able to write down fast enough. So,
well, especially with our guest presenters now, I think that would be really valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm thankful that I didn't use. I'm thankful that I didn't use any names and was able to protect the innocent. Or, you know.
I was thinking that as well. I don't think we mentioned anything like incriminating, so
Yeah.
we're good.
yeah. So does anybody have any suggestions for future possible talks or guest speakers? Or do we just want to email to the executive board or send suggestions that way? I'm kind of opening that as a question because, again, we are past time. We were supposed to end at 6:45. Elizabeth, do you have anything that you want to add?
Oh, I would just plug the mentorship survey. We have probably 7 to 9 people who are willing to do mentoring, and it looks like they're willing to look at papers and that kind of thing. So it sounds like it'd be really good support. So I would say if you fill that survey out first, you probably have first dibs in getting somebody who from the TTU College of Education. So fill that out, and that will also help us assess your needs.
And that is, again, that link is in the chat box for everybody.
Heather, I want to just suggest one thing, if it's okay. I mean, I know we're getting guest speakers and everything for PD, but what I was thinking was not necessarily PD per se, but I don't know if it's going to be a long shot to try to invite the dean maybe to one of these meetings so that like, and we can head it like, you know, have it announced in advance and it'd be like a forum in a way for graduate students to ask him personally, like we're right here already, to bring up the concerns. Because I feel like we're going through a lot of like middle people, but then maybe to have the invitation extended to him where he can actually zoom in here and be in this meeting as well. I think that would be really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah. That's a great idea. And you could also think about Dr. Dwyer and Dr. Burley as well. You know, people who are, you know, in positions of power, so to speak, in terms of things that they're looking for from the bird's eye view of, you know, questions you might have from them.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea. just
Okay.
getting the people with the power on board and really knowing what this organization is about. And I think our new dean would love.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can have him present his vision of what. Maybe he'll talk about, the leadership team and some of those visions of what he's aiming for, hoping for, his goals for the school as well. So.
Okay.
Let me try to see if I can get maybe secure him for the next meeting. Would that be okay if we send an invitation to him right away to get him
Sure. If you're willing to do that, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And that would be a good outreach to him as well, to show him kind of like what EGSO is trying to do and how can we help each other meet each other's goals that we talked about Sunday. Okay.
I have a quick comment about the mentoring survey and the mentoring infrastructure. Just connecting it to what Michael was saying in the presentation, one of the things that the mentorship committee and the mentors can do, the role they can serve, is to help ease the transition of students who are coming in to the program. Getting them acquainted, getting them familiar with procedures, with classes, being able to talk about concerns, things like that. However, in light of Michael's talk, one of the things I'm thinking about is that one of the things that the mentor committee can do, in addition to these other things, is to be that place for peer feedback. So if people want to serve as quote unquote, peer mentors to each other in terms of reading their writing, giving feedback, especially as you enter into the dissertation stage. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a fourth year student and a first year or a second year student. It can be a fourth year student and a fourth year student who are giving each other support on their writing as they're, progressing through the dissertation process. So that might be another powerful way to think of utilizing the mentorship network. So I just wanted to put that out there for people to think about as they fill out the mentorship survey.
Awesome. Okay. Well, just in honoring everybody's time, is there anything else that we would like to bring up for today? Okay. Did you have something, Richard? You just popped into center thing, so you made a noise.
I was going to say that I'm going to stop recording.
Okay. All right. Well, because I see that it is 7 o'clock Texas time, 5 o'clock California time, I think it's time to let you guys go and eat dinner and such. And we will see you in September. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
And if you liked this presentation, talk about it to your other cohort members and let them know they're missing some good stuff.
Yes, definitely.